So let's go ahead and get started. I would first like to introduce you all to Jane Hotchkiss, who is our liaison with the select board this year. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Mary Beth?
Yes, I'm Mary Beth Barker, and I've been a member since the beginning. I live in Concord. I'm a retired social worker, public health practitioner, lived experience with disability.
Lloyd Price. I also am a founding member, live in Concord, and am a practicing psychiatrist.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you.
Bonnie?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Albright. This is my first year on the commission, and I live in Concord and have lived here since 2001. And I'm a PhD student in gerontology. I have a master's in gerontology, and I'm very interested in disablement process and accessibility.
Jennifer?
Hi there, nice to meet you, Jane.
Hi.
My name is Jennifer Brooke, and I too live in Concord. I'm one of the founding Disability Commission members back when we were the Disability Committee. And I have 3 young children, one of whom is multiply challenged with sensory and physical disabilities. And I'm very interested as well in accessibility, especially here in Concord.
Great. Meryl?
Hi, I'm Meryl Schwartz. I am one of the original founders of the Disability Commission, and I live on Main Street in West Concord, and was formerly on the COA board, but I decided to focus on the Disability Commission, which is dear to my heart.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
We're also next door neighbors, so that's okay.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm your neighbor down the road.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
sorry, I had trouble. I had
Small
trouble
world.
signing in.
Right. Janet, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, am I introducing myself to Mary Alice?
To Jane.
Oh, to who?
To Jane Hotchkiss, who is our new liaison with the select board.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize that.
I'm sorry, but she's not showing up on my, I have to see it before I can introduce myself. Huh. Hi, is it Jane?
Yes.
Jane,
There you
hi.
go.
Janet Byer. I am a neighbor of Mary Alice. I'm pointing to this as if you can see it, but I know that you can't. I was instrumental with Meryl and Mary Beth in getting this thing started, but just joined the committee last year.
Nice to meet you.
I don't think I have anything else to say.
Yeah, great, thank you. And Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Young. I have been on the commission for about 2 years. Live in Concord. I'm a librarian at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and my son, who's 25, has developmental and intellectual disabilities, which is my interest in being a member of the committee.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thanks.
All of you.
Okay. Thank you. And it's great to have you, Jane. So welcome to the commission. Let's do the approval of minutes. Karen sent those out to you. We've got the minutes from the October 8th meeting. Are there any changes that need to happen to the minutes?
Nope.
No?
I move that we accept them.
Second.
Okay. Karen, I'll let you call roll.
Okay, Bonnie.
A second.
Okay. Lloyd.
Second, approve.
Jean. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Approve.
Jennifer.
Aye.
Okay. Do I ask also Meryl and Janet? Is that
Yes.
okay? Sorry, Meryl.
Aye, yes.
Janet.
Yes.
And Mary Beth.
Yes.
And I say yes. Okay.
I approve. So we won't ask Jane because she wasn't here with us at that time. Then we have the minutes from October 29th, which was not an actual full meeting. We had 4 commission members who were there. 5, I'm sorry, 5, including Terry. So those of you who were at that meeting, are there changes or additions to those minutes?
I don't think, no.
Okay. And I'm not sure what we can do to actually approve these because we don't have a quorum of people who were there who could approve them. But could we have a motion that we file these with the town clerk as unofficial minutes of an unofficial meeting?
So
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. So move.
Okay, thank you,
Second.
Janet.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay.
And
so I think we can ask everyone to vote
okay.
on that.
Okay. Bonnie.
I approve, and I realized that I was not at that last meeting, so I shouldn't have approved the minutes from the previous meeting. But for this one, yes, I approve this motion.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Lloyd, your vote?
Approve.
Okay. Jean?
Approve.
Jennifer?
Approve.
Meryl?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And Mary Beth?
I also was not at that last meeting, so I probably shouldn't have approved either. But for this motion, I do approve.
Okay.
Okay.
The minutes
And I
before
approve.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a little bit sticky with the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So let's move on to the library parking concerns. And the HDC is going to meet at 7 o'clock today. You all have had the minutes of the October 29th meeting. Are there comments from anyone who was at that meeting?
Jean, I have a question.
Yes.
As liaison between this and the HTC, I assume that I will be at that meeting tonight.
I would assume you would be there.
Yeah, okay.
And that it's an open meeting, so anyone here can.
But I assume that I'm going there as a representative of the HTC, of the HTC.
Of the commission.
I mean, of you. Yeah.
Yeah. I plan to be at that meeting as well.
Okay. I did not get the information about getting into the meeting. I didn't get the Zoom.
Yeah.
I think they probably don't have me down as the liaison between this committee and that committee. So I didn't get their minutes.
Okay. Well, let's see. I'll see if I can download their agenda after this meeting and I can email it to you.
Yep.
Could I have it as well? Because I
Sure.
don't believe I have it. Is there, I just have a question about what more as a commission we should be doing or saying, and what is our position at this point in time? can you give me any clarity, Jean, of what we can do, if anything, or should be doing?
So I think our position has always been that we wanted to see on-site parking, which we felt would be safer for people, particularly people with mobility issues who might be getting out of a vehicle. And I don't think that has changed. What we can do, we've gone on record at multiple meetings on this issue, and the library is just meeting the ADA requirements for parking. So, there's no teeth to require them to do anything different. And it feels to me that they are not interested in trying to sort of push things forward further. So, I think people can go, people can express their feelings about it. I'm not sure it will change the outcome, but I think it's certainly worth, again, registering people's concerns. Yeah, Jane.
And just by way of transparency, I'm also the liaison to the HDC, which is why I have reached out to both chairs to request some kind of discussion, because it is not my experience going through the process so far, having spent more time in the HDC meetings than I have had the pleasure of being in the Disability Commission meetings. I am not clear that there's as big a separation of intent. I think some of this is probably bound in interpretations of limit of what either commission or committee can do. However, I would recommend to the commission that there be a discussion / vote on what you would like. It doesn't, and what your recommendations are. I mean, your recommendations can acknowledge where the ADA regulations may take you, but that doesn't limit anybody or a commission. You're not bound by federal law to stay at this line, I don't believe. So if the commission wants to say, this is what we'd like to see, this is probably the opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be the meeting, to Meryl's question, because that answered my original question, which is, has the commission publicly taken made a recommendation?
So actually, Jane, we have publicly made that recommendation. We did it at the last HDC meeting. We did it at least one, I think maybe two of the meetings that the Library Corporation held over the fall, late summer, early fall. So I think we can certainly take a vote on what our stance is, but the Library Corporation knows quite well at this point, and I think the HDC does as well. But I think continuing to voice that is really important. And I do want you to know, Jane, I made 3 calls to Peter this week to talk with him, and we finally did talk midday today and talked about that actual issue, which is something that this commission has discussed in the past, about some kind of joint meeting with the two to really talk about what our responsibilities are, what our limitations are, And, you know, and we talked a bit about how the HDC is really backed up by state statute in terms of historical buildings, and the Commission on Disabilities is backed up by the ADA. And so, you know, I think we don't want to get into a tussle back and forth about what's more important. They're both important in their own right, but we, you know, our duty is to people with disabilities and making sure that there's access. Right. And yeah, Janet, you have a.
I thought that I was very surprised to get, when I got the notice, was from the HCC, I've forgotten now, it had to have been, in which, with the new plan, that there was no consideration given to on-site parking. I really thought that we had made a dent in that at the last meeting, and the man, there's a chair and then the other man who spoke, were both very sympathetic, I thought, after we gave our little spiel. And he said, I mean, one of them said, I never thought about that. We will go back to the drawing board, but they didn't really.
No.
What they've got for parking is what they had before. And tonight, at tonight's meeting, is there a way for us to bring that up? I mean, can we get violent?
Well, hard to get violent over Zoom, but no, I think.
I mean, can we get, you know, we've been very polite and very, you know, and understanding, and oh yes, I know it's hard, but this is ridiculous that they understood what we were saying. And I've been to the library, I've had lunch in the library lawn several times since then, and you can't see that back part from the front of the library. It's not even visible. So I don't see what their problem is.
Yeah, I think we can certainly share our concerns with them. We do need to keep in mind, they are just barely meeting the ADA. And that's the teeth that we have is the ADA. So
yeah, just barely what? I missed what you said.
They are just barely meeting the ADA standard.
Yeah, exactly.
With what they've drawn for on-street parking.
Yeah, and even though they really seemed to care I was so happy at the end of the last meeting we had with them, because they really seemed to get it.
Yeah.
And then the plans came back and they were the same.
Right. And you missed the meeting in which they decided that, you know, they were supposed to go back to the drawing board.
Oh, okay.
Jeff, the designer, or the person who's doing the planning, came back only with the on-street plan to begin with. And basically it negated all of our efforts. And therefore I would like to come, I would like to propose that I'd like to make a motion that we articulate to them, whether it be in writing or verbally at least, our collective reasons for maintaining that this is, you know, just not going to make the library accessible to everybody in Concord. Yes, Jennifer, go ahead, Jennifer. Perhaps you could put the information together in a motion.
But they're meeting tonight, so.
Yeah, they're meeting tonight. And here's the problem. Here's the problem though. The problem is that they are meeting the letter of the law. They are doing everything that they're required to do. And I think what's so frustrating for all of us is that they haven't done more.
Yeah.
And especially when the opportunity to do more is so open and blatant and apparent. Right, exactly. So I think there's two things at play here. One is that they're meeting the letter of the law and nothing more. And as anyone who was at that last meeting, I got a little heated about the idea that they were claiming that they were going above and beyond, because there's nothing above and beyond about what the library is doing. So that's the first thing. I think that it doesn't hurt to go to the HDC meeting and continue to pound the drum, which is, this is not okay. It's not okay just to have the very bare minimum when so much more is possible. And in this particular case, there was an opportunity to appropriately set precedent of how to make parking and ADA accessibility a seamless opportunity, a seamless design intervention in a historic property. And that's really, I see as like the major loss here, is because it could have been such a great opportunity to say and show, look, here we have this historic property, and look, we put parking here, and isn't it beautiful, and it works for everyone. And it looks great. It looks like it fits the context. So I think that's the loss. Now, is the library up for having that kind of, kumbaya lesson around this project? Probably not. I know they spent a lot of money. I know they've lost a lot of money. That's not really for us to figure out as a commission. I do think as a commission, we've as Jean was saying, we've really used all of the rocks that we have in our pocket. When they meet the law, they meet the law. It doesn't mean, though, however, that we can't advocate for more. And I think that's the gray area. I think, it's useful to pound the drum, but we don't really have any bigger stick to use. I think going forward, education, public education, and and just FaceTime with people, like quite literally, making it more of a conversation in the community about accessibility and parking, and I think there's a couple of other issues besides parking, including like getting in and out of retail businesses here in town. The pandemic has created a whole bunch of other issues, so it's not just parking. And I feel bad that to some extent, I think in this particular case, the Disability Commission has been used almost as a foil for managing some other kinds of grudges that we, or as a community, there might be, I guess, with the Historic Districts Commission. So I think having that group meeting where being able to get the Historic Districts Commission and the Disability Commission working together, we could avoid some of that sort of like, playing against each other a little bit better in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And I was extremely disappointed last week to see that the library had made no effort to put together a parking plan, which the HDC asked them to go and do. So I really feel at this point it's on the library, not the HDC, that is the real block to this at this time. And they seem unwilling to sort of evolve this a little bit. And the piece that just feels such like such a loss to me is that concept that people with disabilities aren't going to go to the library if they don't feel comfortable parking there. And they did all this work to make it beautiful and accessible on the inside. And, then people aren't going to enjoy it. So
I have another issue. Well, it is the related issue about meeting with them. Quite honestly, I feel that we have been so slighted that I have a lot of trouble sitting down with them and doing the type of sensitivity training that needs to be done. I'm really very concerned that this reflects very poorly on Concord, and that there is they basically just ignored us. And I feel so slighted that I don't know how to sit down with them and be taken seriously now. Mm-hmm. I think we're like window dressing for them. And I am having trouble getting past that. So that's why I'd like to come out with a statement saying that we feel that this is not this is not what Concord should be doing for accessibility. This is a very bad precedent to make in the center of town for the sake of they're basically ignoring the recommendations of the Disability Commission. Maybe they are, staying within, the ADA regulations. However, what that really means to the average Concord resident who may have any sort of accessibility issues is that they have chosen to ignore it. And I would like that statement to be public. I would like, the citizens of Concord to know what has transpired with between the library planning group and the HDC.
Is a letter to the editor inappropriate? A letter to the editor that the commission would sign, be signed by the commission, saying, basically acknowledging that they have met the bare minimums,
right,
of the ADA. They have met the law, but right, that we're very disappointed because there was an right, opportunity to do better. There was an opportunity to really be welcoming and inclusive, and to go, and that they did not take it. And something like that. I don't
right.
know.
I totally.
Yeah, I think we certainly can do a letter to the editor. I think it may be too late to have that change anything, but at least we can go on record. Let me propose a potential motion that we can present at the meeting tonight. And you guys can help craft around the wording of it. So I would move that a statement that the Commission on Disability make a statement saying that that after significant attempts to communicate with the Library Corporation, that we are, I'm trying to think of the right verb. Disappointed doesn't quite capture it.
Outraged.
Dissatisfied?
Yeah. Not satisfied.
Dissatisfied. Yeah, we're highly dissatisfied. Yeah, Jane.
How about dismayed?
I might recommend saying we do not recommend.
Oh yeah.
The current plan.
Right. Right.
Other than emotional, just be.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, yeah. Then that the Commission on Disabilities pass a statement saying we do not recommend that any group within the town approve a library parking plan which provides only on-street parking.
but I think we should acknowledge that it does meet the bare requirements of ADA, just so people understand,
Yeah, I agree.
Although it meets the bottom line,
The bare minimum.
Go beyond that.
Mm-hmm. It's the lowest bar rather than setting
the letter, but not the spirit.
Would have done.
Yeah.
Something that I haven't heard that I keep thinking is it's extremely frustrating that we spent so much time on this. We've been talking about this every month. And if they were here too, all those meetings. And if they didn't ever plan on doing anything different, why would they go through all this rigmarole and waste everybody's time?
Yeah.
So
I agree. It is incredibly frustrating. I think we're all really frustrated about this. And it does feel like, our comments kind of fall on deaf ears.
Well, that's why I felt like it was, we were being used, manipulated. And I feel that it was exactly as you say, a waste of our time, that we weren't taken seriously. And it's just been a lesson in frustration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jennifer.
So I don't want to rain on the parade, but I don't know how much more we can do other than
no, we can't
disagree, right? Yeah, but I do think that going forward, it would be potentially a good project for this commission to evaluate the parking lot over between the umbrella and the library. I think there are only 2 spaces over there. So in some ways, more egregious than the on-street parking is the fact that there are only 2 new spaces. I would take on-street parking if there were 5 or 6 more spaces, and it would be fine. So I think that there are other battles to be fought here, specifically around access to the library. And so maybe I think it would be worth kind of just going over to the lot. I mean, I think that lot serves both umbrella and the library. That's a lot of square footage, but not a whole lot of parking, and there's only 2 spaces over there. So I think that there's some pushback that we could. It's not about pushback. I think we could make the situation better for people who need accessible parking. I don't know if the battle is in front of the library with these 2 new spaces. I think there's another battle over in the parking lot that we could probably fight and win and make that a better scenario overall. So.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Mary Beth.
No, the other thing about that spot is, in addition to having more spaces than just the 2, I think what do you think about improving the crosswalk? Have a signal on that crosswalk so that the cars actually get told to stop so that you can cross there safely. Because, I mean, I see that in other parts of town. Usually it's around the railroad or something, but so what? They can, they may be open to doing that since they know that those spots are.
Yeah, and I kind of remember them talking about having 3, expanding the handicap parking in that lot to 3. I do want to kind of not absolve them from solving the issue by saying, oh, it's okay if you just add more spots. Yeah, we'd certainly prefer that to just on-street parking, but that's not considered ADA acceptable parking for the library. You have to cross the street, and it's a busy street. Am I wrong about that, Jennifer?
Yeah, unfortunately, that is acceptable parking for ADA parking. The spots themselves, I haven't been there in a while to park in those spots or near those spots. I don't remember them being compliant just because they were old, and the walkway getting from those spots to the edge of the sidewalk before you cross, I don't remember that being compliant either. So I think even if the parking didn't expand over there, it needs work. It needs work to bring it into compliance. But unfortunately, if that lot is dedicated to the library, it's okay if you have to cross the street. It just means that the route between the parking and the library needs to be an accessible route. It currently is, and the new parking, even on the street, will be, I think, a shorter distance to get into the library. But I think the crosswalk itself, I think the idea of a crossing light or some kind of traffic deterrent would be something that would be great. It's not required by ADA, but it's a good suggestion. So, and I wouldn't intend to absolve. I was just trying to not let our emotional energy on this commission get away with just this. I think that once we get past this, that I think there's other places we can continue to put that energy and make things better, even if we lose this fight. Because again, the reality is that we don't have any teeth in terms of, we cannot recommend, and I think that's pretty bold to not recommend the plan as a commission. But again, I don't want to put our commission into the position of having to design all of the parking and all of the ADA accessible, features of every project that comes before us that we don't like. And that's really not something we want to do, and we're not tasked with that. So, so I think that, anyway, that was just my point, is to definitely, bring the hammer down as much as we can in terms of this project, but there are other places that the library could use some encouragement to make improvements for parking for people with disabilities.
I'd like to add something about this stoplight or a blinking light. My understanding from what I know about in other situations is it's a pretty complicated process. There's a lot involved before you can erect something like that.
Yeah. But not impossible. They erected that on, Commonwealth Avenue where
it can be done.
where the rail trail.
Yeah.
crosses.
And I don't know, I think I might have told you all this, but not that crossing, but the one that goes a little bit, that comes out of the point of the library. I was hit as a pedestrian in that crosswalk on May 15th, and it's a short distance away from where you are. I think it's kind of dark over there, and you can't, I don't know, it's a dangerous spot. So
it is. Okay, I'd like to go back to seeing if we can have this statement so that we have it ready for the HDC tonight. So, go ahead, Jane. You're muted.
Yep. Hazard of the world.
Yeah.
Do you want to limit it to tonight's HDC, which obviously is the meeting tonight, in your statement, or do you want to make a statement that you could then, regardless of the committee, looking at plans? I mean, you could just simply say that no Concord board or committee approve plans without on-campus parking. In other words, you could rather than pointedly saying we recommend that the HDC vote no functionally, you could say that the Commission on Disability recommends, you could do it negatively or positively, recommends that any plan for the library going in front of any board or committee in Concord should include, and if you put it on the positive, maybe you don't have to say beyond the bare minimum. You can just simply say should include this.
Right, that makes sense.
Okay, so let me see if I can voice this. I think we do want to state pretty strongly that we're not in approval of the just on street parking. So the statement would be something to the effect of the Commission on Disabilities does not approve the parking plan of the library, which includes only on-street parking, although it meets ADA standards. We further recommend that any town entity only consider library parking that would include on-site parking. Does that make sense?
I would make it approve of rather than approve.
Okay,
because we don't, yeah.
Okay. I know, Karen, you were writing furiously. Do you think you caught it? You're muted.
Sorry, no. The sentence beginning with "we recommend any town entity." What were you? What did
that any town entity only approve a design? Well, no, only approve library parking, which includes on-site parking. Only approve of. Thank you, Lord.
Seems good.
Could you read it again, please, Jane?
Yeah, Karen, are you able to read back what you
I
know the pressure's on.
I know I'm getting lost in the words here. The Commission on Disability does not approve parking plan for the library. Okay.
Which includes only on-street parking.
Which includes only on-street parking. Okay.
And again, it's approve of.
Approves, right.
We recommend that any town entity, and then was there some expansion on approving?
Only that any town entity only approve of
library parking, which includes
on-site parking.
Do you really want to say library? You want to limit it to library? Because this is probably the only improvement to the library.
Well, yeah. I think to Jennifer's earlier point, we need to expand on parking concerns around Concord.
This may be the only plan for this library improvement. So there may not be other.
What other town entities would have to approve of it? Just out of curiosity, I don't really know. Like building or something?
The building commission, the planning board must have already approved it.
Okay.
Do you think it behooves us to make a statement about the reason we're saying this in that should we state that it does not, the current plan does not provide a welcoming spirit or does not
it doesn't advance the spirit of inclusion and welcoming.
Right.
Right.
It does not encourage.
Right. Right. It does not encourage
people with disabilities to use the library.
Right. Or it doesn't
can we
expand the idea of accessibility to the community, basically.
So
I think that's
Karen,
important.
Yeah. Can we sort of insert in the middle of the sentence after we say we don't approve of the only on-street parking? Although it meets the ADA, it does not, how did you say it, Mary Beth? You said it very
advance. I said does not advance the spirit of welcoming or advance the spirit of inclusivity. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, spirit of inclusion.
Inclusion.
Right.
Yeah.
for all citizens in Concord.
Okay, yeah.
I
Jane,
like that. I like that all people.
For citizens of all abilities.
Accessibility helps everyone.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So my point in saying to, you know, all boards and commissions, all committees and commissions, was simply because I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know whether this current plan has gone in front of the planning board or the ZBA. So,
Okay.
and again, in backing up one level general and saying, you know, this is what we would recommend to any, you know, any project in a sense, with on-site parking. Because that, you know, in the spirit of inclusion.
In the spirit of, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or universal design.
Right, exactly. So you're helping all, you know, look, you're helping every architect, you're helping every builder, and you're helping any project coming forward. And you're helping other boards and committees remember what the Disability Commission's bottom line is.
Right, right. That is really part of our charge, you know,
exactly.
to give service to the community. And so we have to remind them, excuse me.
Yeah. So can we add another sentence at the end there that says, we further recommend that any future project in Concord always include on-site, or let's say safe on-site accessible parking.
Well, you could, except that there are some buildings in which it's not possible.
Yeah. No.
Well, that's what I would say. I think that's a little too narrow, because there may be projects that come along and you can't include parking
when possible.
So again, I think that the goal here, Meryl, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's the problem of being dismissed. And so again, I think it's okay to say we do not recommend the plan that we saw. We can't endorse it, and we would prefer, because that's really all we can do, we can't demand, we would prefer on-campus parking, particularly for the library. I don't know if we want to make blanket statements about you know, on-campus parking or on-site parking for every project here for ever to happen in Concord. I think that's a little unrealistic, but I do think we should just be very clear and to the point, which is we don't like this plan, it's not safe, and we don't want to be dismissed, and we would appreciate it if you would take our opinion into our advice, that's what we are, an advisory board, into consideration more seriously. So I go a little bit easy on the parking on site across the board. There's one other thing and that we could recommend, which is that you know, none of the parking spaces for the library are dedicated to the library. Anyone can park in them, even if they're not using the library. Absolutely. And so again, it adds to the appearance that, well, if you can get a spot, great, you can go to the library, but we're not going to look out for you. So, I think that's another issue we could remark on that's problematic about the current parking scenario that they've proposed.
Right, they're not dedicated spaces. Right.
Yeah. So if we strike that last sentence, Karen, can we get you to read what we had there? Sorry.
Let's see, where do we, all right. So the last two statements were, although the parking plan meets ADA standards requirements, the plan does not advance the spirit of inclusion for citizens of all abilities. And then somehow to work into, we do not recommend the plans that we've been shown and prefer on-campus parking. That sounds a little awkward. And then somehow work in the dedicated library spaces. I'm not sure where that would, let's see, we do not recommend.
So Jennifer, what's your sense? Do we need to work in the idea of dedicated parking spaces into this for tonight?
I think it would be a good recommendation to add.
Okay.
It could be lightly done with signage, and as if I put myself in the shoes of someone in the Historic Districts Commission, that more signage isn't necessarily a great thing from their perspective. So if it was to be considered, it might want to come up at the Historic Districts Commission, because it would be more poles and non-historic objects out there in the view shed. So I do think it would be helpful to put it in there.
Okay. So let me make a suggestion at this point. I think everyone is in agreement that we should have a statement. We've kind of crafted pretty much what we want to say. I would like to be able to move the agenda along because we're almost at 6 o'clock now. Would you all feel comfortable if maybe after the meeting, if Karen and I touch base and try to make sure that the language sounds reasonable, and
right,
we can quickly email it out to all of you, and and be able to have something that we can present to the HDC for 7 o'clock. Is that agreeable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
All right.
Do we need a motion?
No.
I
Probably.
suppose we do if we're going to say this is the
Yes, we do.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
I'd like to move that Jean present a statement as discussed to the meeting this evening.
Okay, and that Karen and I have finished crafting it and cleaning it up. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second.
Okay. Karen, you're really doing the yeoman's work tonight. You have to call
everybody.
Yeah.
Oh,
you have
sorry.
To vote.
Bonnie, your vote.
Approve.
All right, Lloyd.
Approve.
Jennifer.
Approve.
Meryl.
Yes, approve.
Janet.
Janet.
Probably muted.
Nope, now you're muted, Janet.
Did I approve? I approved.
Thank you. And Mary Beth.
Approve.
And
approve.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I would like to suggest that we, although it is very important that we move liaisons to town committees to next month's agenda. I would like to talk a little bit about town accommodations for deaf and hard of hearing. And we definitely need to talk about the parking at 136 Sudbury Road. So town accommodations for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. The gentleman that put together the report were not able to join us tonight. And I told them that's fine, that we have this on our agenda. It probably would continue because this isn't an issue that's going to get resolved tonight. And Kate is not able to be with us tonight. So hopefully she'll be at the next meeting. And I know she plans on having some of her staff there. But we have a guest here who wants to maybe present a perspective on this.
Sure, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Mary Alice Mudge. I live in Concord. I'm a neighbor of Janet Beyer. I'm really honored to be here tonight. Thank you all so much for having me and for the work that you do. I have hearing loss. I wear hearing aids. My hearing started to go when I was in my late 20s, and by the time I was 40, I had no choice. I needed hearing aids. There's no explanation for my hearing loss. No acute event, no particular diagnosis. They call it the sensory neuro hearing loss. It really pervades my life. So I feel as a relatively young person, I'm 48, about to turn 49, as a relatively young person with hearing loss, and with no other impediments, I want to say to anyone who will listen, that hearing loss alone is a huge challenge. It just affects every choice that I make, and it affects my daily approach to my life. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with it. You basically don't know all day long what you're going to be able to hear and what you're not going to be able to hear. I think the number one misconception is that hearing aids are a solution. What I've come to learn is that, you know, glasses or contacts are corrective, but hearing aids are not. They just give you a boost. I remember sitting in the chair of my dental hygienist, and she was very frustrated about her mom not wearing her hearing aids. And I said, actually, I wear them, and I want to tell you, I probably understand why she doesn't wear them, because they really don't work that well. And it's a big disappointment when you get those hearing aids and they're really kind of like a B-, you know, kind of a help. So my doctor said, yes, indeed, they just give you a boost. They're not corrective. So that was another kind of disappointment I had to live through, is to understand once I finally got the hearing aids, my problems were not solved. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of take my hearing loss upon myself to solve, and I've committed to myself to always to not let it stop me. I go to meetings, I live my life, but it's not without a lot of anxiety and difficulty. So I have two things to propose. I would love for there to be some kind of support group for people with hearing loss. I feel that we have a lot to learn from each other. And I think that would go a really long way. I actually had the occasion of being at the Council on Aging once. And I actually meant to attend a meeting that they had on hearing loss, but I somehow got the week wrong. And I had a wonderful conversation with the woman sitting at the front desk. She was fantastic. And I said, is there a hearing loss support group, you know, that you run? And at the time she said, no, I'm not sure if there is one now. And she also said, as you know, given my age, it wouldn't necessarily apply to me, and that I should contact Bonnie Wilbur, I believe, to see if there could be a hearing loss support group for a younger demographic. I'm not sure that I actually did reach out to Bonnie, but I do want to say that a hearing loss support group, I think, would go a long way for all ages. And then the other thing I would recommend is something I've realized, is that my son also has what would be considered a disability. He has a severe food allergy. I once read that there's such a thing as what's considered a quiet disability. I think that's the term that was used. It's one that's not so obvious when you just look at someone. So my hearing loss, my son's life-threatening food allergy would fall in those categories. One thing I've noticed is in explaining them to other people, it can be, you know, really challenging. I've had some wonderful conversations, but also some very challenging conversations. For some reason, people are more readily accepting of my hearing loss, but they're not as accepting of the food allergy. I think that's very complicated and a hard thing for people to understand. There's even the medical community, it's a very new field, and unfortunately it's a very fast growing epidemic, and the medical community is still working to understand it. So I was reading something about some individuals who work in the fashion industry, and they have disabilities, and they feel that they're constantly having to explain themselves to others for their differences, and they called it disability navigation. I don't know if that's a term, but they were saying that they wish that there were more public understanding, public education, which of course made me think of the school curriculum around disability navigation, which to me meant explaining to others, you know, the story of your disability. Each person can really only speak for their own self. So I'm happy to be here tonight and speak for my own self and on behalf of my son of the challenges. And that I think that if there were such a thing in the curriculum where, you know, people could tell their stories, there's always a person behind every hardship, and somehow through the stories, I think we can, you know, make a lot of progress. I'd love to see that as part of the school curriculum. So those are my 2 recommendations, and thank you for having me. I know you have many other things to talk about. So thank you.
Well, thank you for coming and for sharing that. I am pretty sure that there is a hearing loss support group now that is run by the Council on Aging. And Jane, I know you're not on camera, but hopefully you're hearing this. I think that the Council on Aging, certainly its mission is serving Concord seniors, but I think there needs to be a little bit of room in that group for accepting people who it would be a natural fit for them to take part in something, even if they don't meet the age criteria. So that might be something that perhaps you can help us navigate with the head of the COA.
Well, I have even a better recommendation.
Oh, good.
I really think that you should just directly get in touch with Bob Andrews, who is the pivotal person for hearing loss groups in Concord. I think he was the one who formed the group at the COA, but I think he's really quite knowledgeable about you know, which groups of people and which people in Concord would be the most supportive. So Bob Andrews, who is the one who spearheaded the recommendations that he's trying to get you know, looked at for Concord, is the person to try to be in touch with. And I could, if I got your email address, then I could just have him get in touch with you, or I could give you his email.
Meryl, I can send you Mary Beth's email address.
Who?
What?
I can send you Mary
This
Beth's.
is Bob.
Not.
This is Bob Andrews.
I know, but I can you.
It's Mary Alice, not Mary Beth.
Alice. Why am I saying Mary Beth?
Oh.
Because I'm
Mary Alice. I got confused.
Mary.
Yeah. So Janet, will you send Mary Alice's email, with your permission, Mary Alice, to Meryl and also to me, and I will share with you, Mary Alice, the report that Bob and his group put together. I think you might find that interesting to read. I do want to let you all know, I reached out to the Mass Commission on Deaf and Hard of Hearing, which Mary Alice, that might be a group for you to connect with as well. MCDHH, Mass Commission on Deaf and Hard of Hearing.
Okay.
And I shared with their consultant the concerns that the group had brought to us, some of the comments that Kate made about, you know, the town only has $5,000 a year to spend on all accommodations, and that as a commission, our charge really is to make sure that there would be access to all people. So, you know, people who are late deafened, and use hearing aids to assist at some level at least. People who are culturally deaf, deaf from birth, and everybody kind of in between. So his comments, which I think I can share with you now, I will send his email message to all of you, were first of all that the town should be using a cart recorder for meetings. And I know that the town does that for town meeting, but that, you know, that perhaps needs to be spread more widely. And that's something that can provide better accessibility to people with all kinds of deafness or hearing loss. And quite honestly, it can be it's one of those accommodations that makes things better for everyone, because if you're not catching what's being said, you can read it as the meeting progresses. That, of course, is not without cost, but that's sort of the best level of providing access. And he did praise the work of the hearing loss group in putting together their report. And he said, certainly the kinds of things that they were requesting are not at all unreasonable. So, but he had some, you know, somewhat negative things to say about a cap of $5,000 on accommodations for the town. So that's something that the town really needs to look at in terms of all kinds of accommodations. So, and
I'm not familiar with that technology. So it's like a real-time captions, someone's typing in what's been said.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, Jennifer?
I just wanted to go back. At our last meeting with Bob's group and Kate Hodges, one of the things that was implied was possibly that the town is not in compliance. And in fact, they are in compliance. I went back and I checked, and I talked to the New England ADA Center about the scenario that Kate was proposing that Concord has. And she's right. She's absolutely right. Unfortunately, just like the library, it is the very bare minimum that's required to be compliant. And I think this is the standard problem that anyone who's ever encountered a situation in the world where the conditions around them don't meet their abilities and it's an incongruent match. Anyone who's been in that scenario knows that it's usually the bare minimum, and oftentimes the bare minimum isn't enough, even though that's what the law says. Mary Alice, your idea about your point about the stories being really compelling and the stories being a way to connect people who maybe don't have the experience of disability with people who do, I think is a really it's a beautiful idea. And I'm wondering that as an idea, just floating it now, that as a commission, I wonder if we could have a kind of project. Can we interview people and have a face with a story and put together either a booklet or put together a podcast or put together a series of articles in the journal? I'm not sure, but I feel like there's something to that to latch onto and to carry forward, because those unseen disabilities are so real. And for those of us that live with them, I think it would be really helpful way to communicate, and it's not spectacular and it doesn't feel uncomfortable. So as an idea, Mary Alice, that's an awesome idea. I'd like to hang on to that.
I'm going to have to excuse myself. I'll look for a notice about the next meeting. Everyone stay safe and healthy.
Okay. Let me just say, I think we will do the second Thursday in December. Hopefully that will work for everyone.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, Lloyd.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
So
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary Beth.
No, I just wanted to second what Jennifer said. I also think the idea that Mary Alice floated is a great idea. that somehow people just, you know, have a chance to talk about their story, talk about their experience. I think it not only gives support to other people who are experiencing disability, but it also educates people who don't live, who are able-bodied, who just maybe have never thought about it. It broadens their perspective and their understanding. And I'd like to think more about it, how that might be done. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
And I absolutely, I'm sorry. I absolutely agree. A unit in the schools that would help teach kids about disabilities would be really wonderful. And that there's a curriculum out there. When my daughter was in grade school in the 1990s, I guess, she went to grade school in Newton. There was a whole like 9-week unit about disabilities, and it was a whole curriculum. And they had different speakers who came and talked with the kids. They had equipment that they brought that the kids could handle and manipulate and try out and see. And it was a wonderful curriculum. I'm sure it would need to be vastly updated, but
maybe we could create one for the library.
Yeah.
Well, there are special ed teachers within the school system, which we don't, as a commission, get very involved with, but they have, a lot of resources, or they should have a lot of resources through their special ed department. And I would think that they could very easily help with creating a curriculum. I don't think that we need to be dealing so directly with the schools. I think that's their responsibility, and perhaps we should reach out to them and make that suggestion. But I think that just educating people, about the range of disabilities that we all experience. I mean, it's just, there are so many disabilities can touch everybody. And I think by perhaps telling our stories, I mean, I'd be really glad to think about this more. But I think we should pursue that.
I agree.
I know just for myself, I reached a point where I realized I was just preaching to the choir. Like, the people who I could have meaningful conversations about my son's food allergy in particular were other parents who are walking in the same shoes. And my own physician and his staff were the only people I could have meaningful, non-contentious conversations about the food allergy. And when the doctor said to me, "You're preaching to the choir," I was like, oh my gosh, I have to stop talking to this same audience. There's like almost a duty to reach out to the people that don't walk in these shoes, because it does affect them too. And I think we would be doing them a service as well. There's so much angst. For some reason, the food allergy thing brings so much angst to people. It just seems so foreign to people, and they think like I did something wrong or whatever, but nobody knows what causes these severe food allergies in children today. It's really an epidemic. So my own hearing loss, I don't get such contention from people. They're more just like, "Ooh, I'm so sorry that happened," and we just kind of move on. So I don't know, somehow I realized in my journey that I need to find a way to not just talk to the people that are comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
I urge you to be in touch with the schools and really advocate for your son. I think they need to do much more.
Yeah.
I mean, most people just, I have a daughter who who has kids in school, and all that most parents think of is, oh, this is really a pain because, you know, it has to be nut free. And I think there's very little education about what this is really all about. And it's really a basic disability issue, you know, to educate people about, you know, how people live, you know, and the variability in different life experiences. And it's broadening for them. So it should be part of their educational experience.
Yeah. With the hearing loss, the biggest disconnect is just that people assume hearing aids solve the problem, and they really, they don't. I mean, I think some people have a better match with their hearing aid. I mean, I've done the best I can do, and again, I have no other impediment, so this is my focus for myself, and this is the best I can do, and it's not good. Like there are some situations where I can hear nothing. Some people who just speak really fast and look to the side and kind of mumble, it's their speech style. Forget about it. I'll never understand them. I can only say what, like a couple times in a conversation. So I'm always judging, like, when should I say what? When should I let it go? It's just really stressful. And I wish the hearing aids were better. I don't actually know what accommodations are good in meetings. I just haven't researched that. I know there's like the TTY devices. I'm not even sure what those are. But I actually had the worst experience. What made me get the hearing aids where I went to a meeting that was in Concord, actually. I think it was planning and zoning. I'm not sure, as I was part of putting a new play structure in at a preschool. And we needed to run it by a committee whose name I can't remember the name of the committee. But I sat there, and it was a small room. There were only like 20 people there. And I could hear nothing that was being said. Zero. And I knew then that I had to get the hearing aids, because there's no way I could responsibly go to a meeting or talk to my neighbor from across the street, or who knows what I was missing, things I didn't even know I was missing. So I really feel for people who want to go to meetings, and maybe they also have mobility issues to get to the meeting. Maybe they just say, I'm not even going to go because it's going to be such a hassle just getting there and worrying if I'm going to hear anything, or what I'm going to hear and what I'm not going to hear. It's very awkward when you only hear some of what someone has said to you. It's just really awkward.
Yeah. So
Thank
Jennifer,
you for your voice.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Mary Alice's comment, 2 things. The disability, to have the burden of advocating for yourself all the time as a member of the disability community is not only stressful, it's a vicious circle that's going in it's like a race to the bottom. You can't live your life and advocate to live your life at the same time. It reminds me personally of a lot of the arguments and that are barely successfully being made right now around Black Lives Matter. You can't ask the community that's bearing the burden of all of the injustice to fix the injustice. And so I think that there's something to be said, Mary Alice, about we understand. I feel like we do understand that difficulty. And as a commission, I hope that that is one of the things we're trying to do, is trying to make a place for people to get the support and get the advocacy that they need to make things better, so that all of it doesn't fall on them. That burden doesn't fall on them. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that when it comes to hearing accommodations in our public spaces, I think the real key, and this is where we need to push Kate and our town, is to having choices. Because not one way of hearing works for everyone, as you say. What might work for someone who has hearing aids. Jean, you were remarking that being culturally deaf, a person isn't going to wear hearing aids at all. They need an interpreter. So I think the real key here is not to say, well, we've met our minimum and therefore we're finished. It's really, what are the choices that I have to help me hear and participate in the community life in the town?
It would be awesome. Is there technology that would actually help someone like in that situation when I could hear nothing in the meeting? Is there technology that I could have access that would have actually helped me? I have no idea.
Yes, there are. And I think if you connect with Bob, he's got lots of information. And please, I need to move the agenda along because we still have to talk about the parking, and we have to be off of here by like 6:28 because there's another meeting. But Mary Alice, please come next month because we'll be talking about this again. Okay. So if you're able to join us, please do that. I know Janet will keep you posted on the info and so forth.
Thank you.
Okay, Jane, do you have the Zoom meeting ID and passcode for the HDC?
I do. Sorry, somebody just got here and the dog is now,
of course,
on high alert.
Okay.
As Meryl often hears. Hang on. You know, Gina, I will send it to you.
Okay.
You can send it to
Meryl and Janet. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll send it to you right now.
Okay. So let's move on to the parking issue. I'm going to try to share my screen. I think I have this. So this was a citizen complaint who a gentleman who's gone to the building inspector about this and didn't feel that he got fully heard, and he's asking for handicap accessible parking. This is a dentist's office. This is Main Street down here at the bottom of the page. On the left side of the building, right over in here, is Dunkin' Donuts. This is I'm sorry, I said Main Street. This is Sudbury Road. So I took a look at it, but Jennifer, you took a look at it, and you've got much more expertise here.
So I did look at it. I looked at two things. One, as to whether or not the building qualifies to have parking, accessible parking. It's a local dentist office. And in fact, under our state law, it's a commercial space. Even if part of the building is being used as a residence, it's still a commercial space. It is required under the ADA to have one space available, and it is required to be a van accessible space, which is actually a little bit wider than what's shown on this plan. So if one were to accommodate just this file, this drawing file that you have here, Jean, that would actually be less than what the ADA actually requires, which isn't uncommon for our inspectors to not be entirely up to date. I imagine if this went before our current inspectors, they would be much more astute about it. In which case, then you need an 8-foot wide space for the van space, and then you need an adjacent 8-foot wide unloading space. Yeah, the people who own the property should probably be made should be made aware that that they need to identify a van accessible parking space and loading space on the property.
And this space here that shows as 2 spots, but would be one van accessible parking spot. It's already paved, so all it would take is some paint to indicate that. And then I don't know what you saw when you were there. The day I was there, there were 2 cars parked here that were parked in tandem, and the one car, I would say the rear end of the car was about here. So they would need to rework how they do their parking, their staff parking, so that doesn't happen.
And my guess is that's probably, like, if you look at the way they're parking the space now, that's probably why they haven't complied, is that if they did, they would lose the total number of cars they would be able to squeeze into that off-street lot. And so when the ADA van accessible space goes in, there needs to be a clear accessible route between the loading zone and the base of the ramp that leads you up to the front door. So that car that you saw, Jean, would have been blocking the end of the ramp there. So I don't think that they would they wouldn't be able to park there and still stay in compliance. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to suggest I'll draft a letter to go to the building owner here and send it to Jennifer to make sure that it's written correctly. And then we can send a letter to the building owner, letting them know that they need to, stripe their parking lot, have a van accessible space there. And I'll CC the citizen who complained and the building commissioner.
And Jean, what I can do is include, when you send that to me, what I'll do is I'll include a little diagram of the way it's supposed to look. The diagram can come straight out of ADA documentation, 521 CMR here in town, or in the state of Massachusetts. So it will be very clear what needs to be done.
Okay, great.
Okay,
great.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we get a quick motion on that? And then we've got to get off of here. Mary, you're muted, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move that we draft a letter to the business owner, with the suggestion of where to put the handicap parking as Jennifer directs.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Karen, one more vote here.
Bonnie, your vote.
Approve.
Okay. Jean.
Approve.
Jennifer.
Approve.
Meryl.
Approve.
Janet.
Approve.
And Mary Beth.
Approve.
Okay. And actually, we should be including Jane for
Jane,
votes because she is a voting member.
All right. Jane.
Approve. This is a first for me. I did not know that as a select board liaison, I was ever a voting member. So
yeah, it's unusual. Yeah. All right. Have a good week. Have a good month. And
can I just interrupt for a second, Jean?
Yeah.
I don't know whether there's any public left, but you always want to include public comment.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Any public comment?
Any public?
Yeah. Okay. Hearing none. I will see you all next month, second Thursday of the month. I think that's December 10th. Let me look quick. December 10th, 5 p.m. Okay.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Jean, you're going to send me the link to the meeting that we're going to.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Oh, Jean.
Bye.
And to Meryl also. Okay.